Hotel Surrender by Chet Faker. It is 10 songs, 43 minutes long. So interesting is the second track on here, Low, was a single that was released in October of last year. And I knew that Chet Faker was going to release an album after that single was dropped, and it took a long time. It took a lot longer than I thought it was going to take to be released. Because remember, I kind of in the indie circles around, people are saying, "Oh, it'll be released maybe a couple months from now, whatever." And nearly a year later, that it was released, which is interesting to see, like the process and everything. I don't have an issue with it. I actually like that because depending on the artist and everything, but take your time with everything. Let that one marinate there for you. Just that way you can figure out the whole project and not pull a Kanye. Anyways, so going into the music of it, solid indie category. There's actually a lot of decent substance in here. The first half of the record kind of has there's definitely splits into the two parts of the record, the top half and the second half of that record. The first half is kind of like a solid indie sound and everything, nothing overly exciting or anything that's really offensive. It's just a solid, like, and you were just, the vocals are pretty good, production's pretty good. Like Low, I do really like. It's a track. I liked it when it was last year and everything. I've listened to it a bit. I had it on my playlist last year. Still hits and everything's still pretty good. After that, Get High, you have something that's kind of similar into that sounding stuff too. Kind of like this, I would say in like chill indie or like indie step, or I don't know how to like kind of get that word. It's almost in between like this kind of R&B indie-ish sound and everything, which you do get a little bit this year, and I've heard it a little bit here and there. But that first half is definitely like that solid sound. But then the second half of it kind of slows down and then picks back up, and then you get a lot more like electronic experimentation and stuff towards the second and bottom half of the record, which I do enjoy.
I'll say Chet Faker has been killing this sort of, alternative, like the alternative indie flavor of neopop or R&B. Where it's, kind of slower songs, slower in tempo, usually about like love and more intimate situations, but a lot of things are just like kind of like loose and sort of like abstract for sure. Mm-hmm. Like definitely mid 2010s, he was just like on a roll. The songs like Drop the Game, No Diggity, etc. And so this is like a nice, very like modest, like pared back version of that. You're not taking like No Diggity, things like that, and like turning it up to 11 or 12. There's barely like a banger of a sorts like that, although I can think of like 2 songs in mind that are close to that. And I'd say 3 because like Low is definitely close to that as well. But yeah, this is Chet Faker kind of owning and modestly updating the sound that he's been working on for the past decade, and in a largely good way.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's a really good, because the problem with indie is a lot of indie, I think, are trying to one up each other in a way and kind of like own this specific sound or whatnot that you can get a lot of in there. But then within Chet Faker, he's been around for so long. He's like, I kind of think he just drowns out all that sound and just makes something that he really wants to make, if that makes any sense. Because I can see that's a lot of younger indie artists and stuff where a lot of them can sound quite similar, and then some of it can get a little bland here or there, but then there's still some very good work in there as well. But this is a very, very polished, good record, top to bottom. Again, nothing like super stands out. There's a couple good tracks I like in here. I like Low, I like Whatever Tomorrow, Feel Good. Those are all like tracks that I really enjoy.
Those were mine.
Oh, that's hilarious. There's nothing like insanely great from here, but they're all very, very good, well thought out tracks. And throughout the album, everything fits, everything works. Like there's some slower tracks and stuff when you get down towards more of the middle, like Feel Good, you kind of get like that experimentation stuff, which personally is always like my favorite style of indie and everything, kind of that Tori Moi style and Neon Indian style, because those are my favorite indie artists. But there's nothing like, Japanese Breakfast or something that came out earlier this year where every track in there was absolutely incredible. But it's a really good record top to bottom from a male indie artist, because I think a lot of the male indie artists this year who have come out, even last year, some of them felt really bland and not very well thought out or kind of rushed, but this doesn't feel like that at all.
I think those are all really valid points. Whatever Tomorrow takes on this really good sort of the way that Chet Faker can do a really like soulful, powerful like song within his sort of space, That's a really good execution of that, and it's really kind of like I think the highlight of the album for me. And then Feel
Mm-hmm.
Good, I think, is that kind of thing where he's doing for Chet Faker something a little bit experimental, at least in his realm again. But something that ultimately comes out really nice with these like characteristic like strings and plucking of the guitars that you usually get in indie in artists like you mentioned Neon Indian that you'll get. But again, like a much more pared down way to match the Chet Faker album. Hotel Surrender is definitely cohesive in that, you know, it stays in its tempo and it kind of stays in that and continues in that for the whole thing. But I think its tempo and its slowness might be its biggest fault. I think if it had one or two songs that branched out and tried to go a little bit faster, just a little bit, just here or there. Yeah. Not to make it feel like, you know, this is a really nice album, but this is like an album that might put me to a very, very comfortable sleep. And like that's Chet Faker's music can do that, and there's no reason like why it shouldn't, because again, it's like it's intimate indie neo pop kind of deal, so worth the vibe totally. But yeah, I know Chet Faker's range a little bit more, and it feels like it was pared back down a little bit here. But at least it's a cohesive project and does sound pretty nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's his first record in a long time, like what 6-7 years or so, and just interesting to see like an artist, you know, who started in the early 2010s, like 2011 or 2012 or so was his first LP, and to see it kind of evolve and everything, to see the different sounds and different influences and stuff that get them, especially within indie, because there's so many broad different influences and stuff that have popped up in the last decade, that it's interesting to see what he was influenced by / what he had created into his own mind and worked into one old project. I do enjoy it. I agree with you within the faults of it as well. That's just a personal preference thing as well. I like it to have little pick-me-ups here that are a little bit, not necessarily faster tempo, but a little bit more experimental here or there. But if you don't necessarily want to do that, you want to play it a little bit more safe just to stay within the context of the album, then I'd say okay as well. But decent album overall. I did enjoy it.
Yeah, I definitely did enjoy it. Arbitrary Scale this week, because we do Arbitrary Scales in Audioface all the time, because other music recording people who do music reviews will use a scale of some kind and will never actually keep to it, and then just pisses off the audience. Exactly. And so we just like jump the shark already. So this time it's going to be times Kanye West promised to release an album and then didn't come through with it. What's this one going to be for you?
This is definitely Life of Pablo. Which one? Because the fact that it was late, and then he said, wait, I didn't finish it, but I'm going to release it anyways, but then I'll just like touch up on it later on, and he's still touching up on it to this fucking day, because, you know, episodes of Kanye.
Imagine if your barber, like 3 days after your cut, like knocked on your door, was like, hold on, let me get the lines real quick. No, I'm almost there. I'm just about, just real fast. Like I brought the chair.
Let me put a racing stripe in your eyebrow too while I'm at it.
Yeah, I was gonna give it F-lop, flopped also, T-lop.
Okay.
Perfect situation. Just that like sort of constant. I mean, don't take our Kanye criticism as like a criticism of Chet Faker at all. The Arbitrary Scale literally makes no sense. What we said about the album is what we said about the album, and so that's why the Arbitrary Scales exist.
Exactly, because they never make sense and they change every week. We've done 190 or so fucking Arbitrary Scales, which is absurd. Ranging from drone strikes to Formula One car accidents. So there you go.
To like 2 or 3 episodes where we did use like a ranking system that could feasibly make sense. Where you have like a 0 and a 1, but you know, whatever.